sidekick Shannon Jones. Frank discussions of issues affecting the ATL, Fulton County, the state of Georgia, the nation, and around the world. And now, here they are, live and in living color, the team of Jones and Fann, the Preacher Man.
Well, welcome today to Straight Talk with yours to the Greg Fann, Preacher Man, and Shanan E. Jones. How you doing, Shanan?
Bishop, if I was doing any better, I'd be Greg Fann.
I see you out there on the water with your look like you've been, having a little 4th of July.
No, same background. Just, what you do is you go and you get your summer vacation clothes and you just wear it around.
Okay, well, I see water behind you and behind me.
Say, where are you? Where are you, on vacation? In my mind, I am.
Well, I am.
You know how we do. We're workaholics, but we are going to break away and get some vacation time.
Oh, good. If I seem like I'm in the dog, I am in the dog. Let me see if I can get a little light here, Shannon, because I am
that light behind
on vacation.
You might make it worse.
It is worse.
I see a little bit of you.
You see a little bit. Okay.
I see a little bit of you. Not
okay.
Much,
well,
just a little bit.
Well, let me just tell you like this. I'm gonna tell you and all of those Jews who are watching. I am on vacation. Thank the Lord. But today we have a great program outlined for you. We're going to be talking about the Supreme Court and some of the decisions they have made, right? And so we got Miss Reed out. She's going to be having a guest from North Carolina University, Mr. Andrew Brandon, and we're going to have Ms. Angie Gilborough. She is a student at Yale, and she is the president of the African American Association at Yale, and Mr. Michael Dyson, who is a professor at Vanderbilt and a teacher in African American study. And in addition to that, he wrote a co-author book on equality. And we'll be bringing them on in a little bit. And Shannon, you want to make your announcement now, or you want to wait later about Miss King?
About Miss Ferris, we'll make it for Dr. Ferris at the end.
Okay, all right then. Well, we're gonna go on and hear from Miss C, so I can tell Miss C you're trying to take her job. We'll see you. We'll see you on the other side.
You got job security with me. I can hardly do my job.
Hi, Miss C here with your 3-minute news blast. Hey, Bishop Greg. Hey, Pastor Shannon. Hope you all are doing well, and I hope all of you watching are doing well, and everything's going your way since the last time we spoke. I've got some tidbits of information that I'd like to share with you. Okay. Pilgrim Missionary Baptist at 1775 Pickens Street in Nelson, Georgia, invites you to a 3-night revival July 17th, 18th, and 19th at 7:30 p.m. On Monday and Wednesday nights, Dr. B.J. Lockhart Jr. will be the revivalist, and on Tuesday night is Dr. LaRuth E. Lockhart. Dr. Reginald A. Rutherford is pastor. Faith Memorial Church at 1676 Old Rex Morrow Road in Morrow, Georgia, celebrates the church and the pastor's 35th anniversary, July 23rd and July 30th, both at 3 p.m. Pastor Lonnie Kelly Jr. will be the guest speaker on the 23rd, and on the 30th, Apostle Bessie Arnold will bring the message. The pastor is my dear friend, Bishop Ray Neal. There's going to be a 3-day celebration honoring Reverend H. McDonald and First Lady McDonald, July 13th through the 16th, 2023, 7 p.m. on Thursday and Friday nights, with Pastor Ulysses Ponder bringing the word on Thursday and Bishop Ray Neal bringing the message on Friday. The celebration concludes Sunday the 16th at 10 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. Bishop Charles Wright will be the guest speaker at the 10 a.m. service, and Pastor Arthur Powell at 2:30 p.m. This 3-day celebration will be held at Salvation Word of Life Ministry, 100 Terman Avenue in Atlanta. This celebration honors Reverend McDonald's 47 years of pastoring, 27 years with SWOL, I don't quite know what that means, and 34 years on dialysis. 34 years on dialysis, that is a blessing. Not a blessing, but the fact that he has been able to endure for 34 years, praise God. Um, my husband was on dialysis, and he was on there only about 3 years, but Reverend McDonald has been on there 34 years. And so they're celebrating all of this in a 3-day celebration. Congratulations, Pastor McDonald. And listen, if you have any news you'd like to share, send it to me. Send it to me by email at straighttalknews1362@gmail.com. That's Straight Talk News, and you want to spell it all out. Straight Talk News 1362@gmail.com. And we will be happy to announce your event. And send it to me in a timely manner, okay? Maybe 2 to 3 weeks in advance, okay? All right, and listen, I have 4 things I'd like for you to do. Okay, I want you to subscribe, and I want you to like us. And those little buttons are right there on the front of the screen, okay? And then thirdly, I'd like for you to leave comments. Let us know how we're doing, okay? And then share us. Tell everybody about Straight Talk News, because we are here. And you can find us on YouTube at Straight Talk News with Greg Fann. Now, there are a lot of Straight Talk News on YouTube, so you want to be specific and say Straight Talk News with Greg Fann, okay? And you can see all of our past episodes, and just check us out, because there usually is a lot of good information on our broadcast. And I commend Bishop Greg and Pastor Shanan for keeping the content moving and keeping it relevant. Okay, anyway, that's going to do it for Miss C, and we're going to see you next time, all right? And in the meantime and in between time, may the Lord God bless you real good, okay? Bye now.
All right, Miss C. Always great job, Miss C. But I think Shannon is trying to take your job. Shannon?
There are 3 days of services in honor of Christine Paris, the last remaining sibling, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. On July the 11th, reflections on her career and community. The Expellment Sisters Chapel, located at 350 Spellman Lane. There will be a viewing at 4 p.m. followed at 6 p.m. tribute from Spellman and the Links, and as well as Dr. Ferris Sorority Alpha Sorority Incorporated. On July 15th, at Ebenezer's Historic Sanctuary, which is affectionately known as the Heritage Sanctuary, located at 107 Auburn Avenue. Dr. Ferris will lay in repose from 10 a.m. until 4 p.m. and music will begin at 6 p.m. On July the 16th, Dr. Ferris' homegoing will be held at Ebenezer's Horizon Sanctuary, located at 101 Jackson Street. The fun will begin at 3 p.m. followed by 5 p.m. service. So there are several points in which family members and friends and those who are devotees of Dr. King can honor his legacy, honor the King family legacy, and honor Dr. Ferris. And why do I say all of these with Dr. Ferris? It's her homegoing. But it really fell to her to continue to be a strength and a guide to his wife, his widow, the late Coretta Scott King, to be a strength to her father after her mother was killed on June the 30th, 1974, in the Heritage Sanctuary on Sunday morning as she played the Lord's Prayer on the organ, and from various other family members. And then leading up to the King celebration, the King Day, the building of the King Center, all of that. So this lady, this church trustee, this college professor who had to give up her own goal of getting her PhD, she did end up receiving it, an honorary doctorate, but she for many years had to give that up to really be a strength to her family. And she carried a great part of the King family legacy, celebration of everything that the King family is and was and will remain to be for us. We honor this mighty oak tree, Dr. Christine King Ferris, throughout these various celebrations. We'll certainly be there at Ebenezer on next Sunday, the 16th, a week from this coming Sunday at 5 p.m.
All right, and I just want to say that send out the condolences out to Commissioner Marvin Arrington Jr. and his sister in the loss of their father, the late Marvin Arrington Sr., who was a pillar and a stellar person in this community. Bowleg used to call him Bo. Yeah, I remember when he first got elected to the Atlanta City Council, which was the Board of Aldermen at that time, but he was there. And I just want to thank God for his service, being a lawyer, being a council person, the president of the city council, and in addition to that, his career has been retired as a judge. And our heartfelt condolences go out to his son and his daughter. And I just wanted to, you want to say something about that?
Yeah, about that. When I mentioned that to my father, Judge Arrington had died, of course, longtime president of the Atlanta City Council. My father said, "Oh no, Bowlegs died." That's who he knew him as. And he said to me, he said, there is a color problem, and there has been in the city of Atlanta, a brown bag test. And he said, the only reason why Marvin Arrington was not mayor of this city, and perhaps one of the greatest mayors that this city will ever have in the history of Atlanta, he said, unfortunately, was due to the interracial racism and prejudice that we have, the hue of his skin. And he said, and that's really a shame, because we all knew that Marvin Arrington would have been a great mayor of the city, should have been. And my father said many, many times he was waiting on that announcement and would urge him many times, please run for mayor.
Right. Well, we thank God for his service and the work that he has done and left behind, in his son following in his footsteps, and his daughter, because both of them are lawyers. All right. I want to just say this. One more announcement we want to make. Felicia Moore, the former president of the Atlanta City Council and also a member of the Atlanta City Council for many, many years. Felicia is now the executive director for community resources and engagement. Now they're going to have an open house, and she's going to be introduced to the community, and it's going to be their second annual event. It's a community back to school study supply drive, and it's going to be July the 13th from 6 to 9 p.m. From 6 to 9 p.m. And of course, if you want to know more about it, and let me just give you a number, 470-749-9378 rather. And they're located at 1024 Donald Lee Hallwell Parkway, Suite 8. 8 as an apple, Greg. 8 as an apple. 30318. That's a zip code. All right. So come on, look, plenty of fun, refreshment. There'll be a valet parking will be provided. Don't forget, Monday through Friday, you can drop off school supplies from 10 to 3 p.m. Won't you do that and support it as we help these kids go back to school? And congratulate former President and Councilman Felicia Moore as being the new director of Community Resources and Engagement. Won't you do that? All right. Shannon, let's get ready to talk about Miss Reed.
Yeah, let's talk about it, because me and you are some terrible Miss C's. I think we need to go ahead and
I think so.
We'll get this information. We'll get this information to the anchor.
I think so.
We'll get it.
I think that you're more terrible than me. And the only reason I'm terrible is dark up in here. I'm sitting in this hotel room and on vacation and enjoying myself and having this conversation about straight talk about affirmative action being gutted by the Supreme Court. Boy, taking a breather. But we're gonna get it done. Now let's go and listen to Miss Reed and read out and her guests as she talked about what the affirmative action did when they gutted it. What did the Supreme Court actually do, and how will it affect people of color?
One tweet that spoke to me from historian, writer, and friend of the show, Michael Harriot. He wrote, "The Supreme Court did not strike down affirmative action. Admission preferences for legacies, donors, employee families, and special recommendations are all still allowed. The court struck down affirmative action for everyone except white people." To his point, prior to today, Harvard has described race as a potential tip or plus factor, along with whether one of the student's parents graduated from the undergraduate college, whether a student comes from a low-income family, and whether a student has special athletic talent. After today, the only tips that remain are legacy, low income, and special athletic talent. Joining me now are Andrew Brennan, a 2019 graduate of the University of North Carolina, who was a party to the affirmative action case involving that university, Angie Gabeau, president of the Harvard Black Students Association, and Michael Eric Dyson, professor of African American and Diaspora Studies at Vanderbilt University and co-author of Unequal: A Story of America, apropos on today. I do want to start here at the table with you, Angie. We were just having the whole Harvard House conversation, but we're going to have a conversation that's more serious now. When I was at Harvard, there were a lot of legacies. There were a lot of people there who didn't get in because they had great grades. They got in because, you know, they mama and daddy, grandparents' name might be on one of those buildings. Those people can still get in. Their affirmative action seems quite in place. What do you make of that?
No, I totally agree. That's still true today. There's also, like, you know, we've seen it in other cases, like the back door, the side door, other ways to get into Harvard. But they just struck it down just for Black students and Black and brown students on campus to be able to have specific acts due to like disadvantages in specific circumstances.
And when I was there, one of the other experiences I had is that the so-called affirmative action kids were some of the most brilliant people I've ever met. They all worked really hard in school, were super nerds. I mean, Ketanji Brown Jackson was there when I was there, okay? This is a brilliant human being. And they were hardworking. The very, very well-off, you know, very affluent kids didn't have to work as hard. They had it set no matter what happened to them. And so I wonder what you make of the fact that this court seems to think that choosing students like you is an affront to the Constitution.
No, it's really crazy. Because at least in my experience, I really found that my race is my identity. All the stories that I've told Harvard, which is the reason I got in, were directly correlated with my race because I live as a Black woman every single day. And a lot of my peers and counterparts that are also Black, like I get to hear their amazing stories and what they get to do every day that you just need in a school like Harvard.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Andrew, you testified, I think, in one of the lower court cases. I would love to know what you make of the decision and how you think it will change the university from which you graduated if people cannot freely, the university cannot freely choose students like you.
Thanks, Joy. Yeah, you know, when I think it's important to remember the context at UNC in which this decision has been made. When I was a student at UNC, the school was 11% Black in a state that was 22% Black. You know, Joy, I had grown up my entire life in the South, but it wasn't until my time at UNC did I see my first and second Confederate rallies on campus. And so it's within that context that this lawsuit was brought. And I think it speaks to how absurd it is that this is not a compelling interest to ensure diversity on our college campuses.
We share that. I saw my first Confederate flag at Harvard as well. Someone unfurled it very large, so that those of us who were Black had to walk beneath it as we went to the library. Fun times. Michael Eric Dyson, you have taught at many PWIs, at many very prominent majority white universities. How do you think these universities, in your experience and the way that they try to recruit students, will react to this decision?
Well, Joy, I taught at Chapel Hill for 3 years. I think that, look, the left has to have a long game and strategy like the right does. They've been laying in wait for 50 years to try to figure out Roe versus Wade, and they worked on it. And we got to understand and underscore, before I directly answer your question, why voting matters. Because
Yes.
Donald Trump not in office means that 3 Supreme Court justices that he appointed would not have been appointed, and Hillary Clinton instead would have appointed them. So voting continues to matter. I think that schools have the wide latitude and the ability to count race as merit, right? So when we have a notion of merit, merit is not an abstract good, right? If you're in a boxing ring, it's meritorious to strike out and hurt somebody. If you're in your home, it's called domestic violence, the same act. Or when they said you can consider race, race was considered in terms of harming Black people, but not to heal them. Well, the same intrusion that a bullet makes in the body, a surgeon makes to remove it. So it can't be that race is the problem in terms of removing the hurt and bringing healing about, as it was in terms of intending harm. This kind of gobbledygook and malfeasance and legerdemain by these Supreme Court justices is utterly ridiculous. White folk get the hookup, Black folk get the hook. So what we have to do is to understand that we have to continue to strategize like we did before there was affirmative action, so we can have a long plan. Schools can still consider race among many other factors. You can't stop a school from saying diversity is incredibly important and name that diversity in ways that obscure the racial dimension for strategic purposes.
Let me quickly ask you what you make of Clarence Thomas's concurrence.
Yeah, that is a shameful manifestation of a lethal and malignant Black self-hatred that continues to express itself in the derision that he holds Black people. This is an unfortunate and remarkable situation where a Black man who used affirmative action, because his mediocrity is not a secret. He barely speaks in the Supreme Court. His inarticulate vowels continue to manifest an intelligence that is quite markedly inferior, and yet he has the ability and the power to kill Black people metaphorically by lifting up the very ladder that he used to get up on affirmative action.
Yeah.
This is so foul and nefarious in so many ways.
And Andrew, I'll ask you the same thing. What did you make of the fact that the second Black Supreme Court justice gleefully saw the end of affirmative action, which he has been trying to do for a long time?
I think it's a real shame. And as Justice Sotomayor pointed out in her dissent, because of today's decision, the police can consider my race when assessing suspicion of a crime. But a college admissions officer can't consider my race when assessing the potential contributions that I could make to a college campus.
Yeah.
I think it's that sort of tortured logic that makes no sense. And it's not just Black people that are harmed by this, Joy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Having diverse college campuses benefit Black and white students of all races benefit. So that's what we're losing.
Indeed. And I'm going to give you the last word here. What advice would you give the next you who's applying to Harvard in this environment?
I would say hold out hope. I was outside the Supreme Court today, and there's a lot of people who are rallying, and also take action.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people will, say that they feel uncomfortable or they feel disappointed by this decision.
Yeah.
But that also has to come with action. That also has to come with, community building, community organizing.
And I would give one piece of advice to everybody who is unhappy with the Supreme Court: vote, and vote all the way down the ballot, because it is the United States Senate who confirms Supreme Court justices.
All right, Shanan. Boy, that's a mouthful right there, isn't it?
Mouthful.
Mouthful.
Absolute
So,
mouthful.
let's dissect and talk a little bit about that, and then we can talk about Biden's proposal in terms of freeing student loans, right? We can talk about the alternative lifestyle community, because I can't remember all the alphabets, and I'm not trying to be disparaging to anybody. I just can't. And we can talk about that, and the ruling that you don't have to allow people to provide service to people based on their sexual orientation. We want to talk a little bit about that, but let's do this first and delve into that, and then we'll try to touch either one of them. But I definitely want to talk about the one that we don't have the time in terms of what happened in that decision about you don't have to allow certain people or serve certain people based on their sexual orientation. Okay, I want to talk about that, this one and that one, because I kind of see these as the two, and slipping back into darkness, going back into how it used to be, who you can serve and who you can't serve. All right, let's talk about this first in terms of this decision. And the judge, that we would think that replaced Thurgood Marshall as a black man serving on the Supreme Court. Let's talk about that in terms of how do you feel?
Let's agree that he did not replace it.
I didn't mean he replaced him. I said as a black man on the Supreme Court. Right. No, he didn't replace him.
That H.W. Bush appointed.
Right. I just want to clarify here that we had a black man, Thurgood Marshall, and he is the second black man that has been appointed to the Supreme Court. Right. Mm-hmm. So we got that clear. So let's move on from that. Let's move on from that point. Yeah. And it looked like he has forgotten a man from Savannah, Georgia. Who has forgotten?
Now listen, the bishop is on vacation, but I don't want anyone to be drawing any conclusions.
Well, let me just say this, and let me be clear. I got this earpiece in my ear, right? And it's talking back to me. So I'm hearing myself. I'm trying to.
And it's throwing you off. Okay.
It's throwing me off.
I just want to be your press secretary for a second.
Well, thank you so much. I want you to make sure you see this earpiece.
Notice the object in his ear.
It's like it's like when you're talking, you hear yourself talking back to you.
Oh yeah, that's why I'm glad we're not on those headphones anymore, because that used to be crazy.
Yeah, but from Savannah, Georgia, who has sit up there and ruled to take affirmative action and just do away with it for admission to colleges. And and as the young lady said, people who are legacy students, because their mom and dad went there, or they can afford to go there, that they can still they got a privilege. And certain people have certain privilege. But people of color, not just black people, but people of color cannot use that as a reason to be admitted into the Ivy League school. And I'm gonna take this thing off because it's messing me up. The kids of color cannot be admitted into Ivy League school. But I can't hear you. But I'm going to try to do my best to, let me see something. Let me try to do something here, because this thing is messing me up. It's really, really messing me up tonight. Let's see. Let's try that, Shanan. Okay, that'll work better. the kids that whose family has money, they can get into Ivy League school, and kids who parents went to an
I
Ivy
think
League school.
now we're getting feedback.
Now you're getting feedback
Bishop.
from it.
Yeah, that's gonna record bad.
Wait a minute, hold on for a second. Well, that's what happened when you. That's what happened when you in a different setting, and you're trying to do something differently than you normally do. All right, let's try that. Okay, you get feedback now? You ain't getting nothing
No,
now.
we're fine now.
I can't hear you now.
No, we're good.
Okay, I'm gonna have to go back with the earpiece because
We might
it's
do the
not
earpiece,
going to
yeah.
seem like it's not gonna work for me. You feedback now?
I don't hear. Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah, I do hear it.
Let me see if I can put this
I
back
hear
in
an
my
echo.
ear. I don't know why you get. Oh, can you get? Are you still getting feedback?
Yes, feedback.
Okay, let's do this. Let me go back to the earplug. I'm just gonna have to battle through it, Shannon.
You just have to go back there
And
in your
if
earpiece.
I
And you were
sound
talking about Ivy League schools.
hello, okay. If I sound a certain kind of way, then that's because it's reverting back to me, brothers and sisters. So I need to do it so I can hear Shannon on the other end. All right, Shannon, you got it.
Well, first of all, I would encourage everyone to see a Frontline special that PBS did on Clarence and Jenny Thomas. A very, very important documentary to really understand this man, Clarence Thomas, and the decisions that he has come to make on the Supreme Court, and really a lot through his life. I don't always agree with Reverend Mike Ware Dyson, but on this case, there is a great deal of self-hatred and hypocrisy in the sense. He has said, Clarence Thomas has said that when he obviously graduated from Holyoke University and went on to Yale University, he has said that he noticed that when he was at Yale Law School, that many people saw him as an affirmative action student, that he really didn't deserve to be there. He did not merit to be there. He was only there to check a box and a quota. And that's not what affirmative action was created to do. It was not created to check a box. It was created to not miss the brilliance that exists in students of all hues, of every race, to make sure that it could be a true university, not Pell, Male, and Yale, but that it could be a university that brought in various different ethnicities and genders and persuasions and races and socioeconomic brackets to come together and to study together and to think together, and then to matriculate from that university and live in a society together. It was created because of racism, several Clarence Thomases, several, and I could just name the list of all of our brilliant students, such as a Barack Obama or such as a Michelle Obama, that these students would not have been considered. And if they were considered, it may have been because of a socioeconomic bracket that would have allowed certain Black students to matriculate from fine schools such as Sidwell Friends and other great institutions, secondary institutions that would have prepared them to be able to go to Ivy League schools. So, I push back on the fact that students are there only to check a box. But they're there because, as Ralph Ellison said, they were the invisible ones that people refused to see. And I think that unfortunately, this statute is going to affect these majority universities in such a way, and they will see that students that test well, that don't have biases in that, but maybe they don't have the interpersonal skills to be able to really advance the culture of a university, will matriculate in, and it will change the tenor of the university. On the other side, I think that this decision bodes well for historical Black colleges and universities, HBCUs, and those HBCUs that folks didn't consider. I mean, you had students that would have a list of universities and colleges that they'd be applying to, and they would only deal with the fringes of HBCUs. What would be maybe the more those HBCUs that are deemed to be at the highest bracket, the Toniest HBCUs, the Morehouses, the Spelmans, the Howards, and the Hamptons. And now it will be well for the Bethune-Cookmans, for the Morris Browns, and for the various Savannah State University and the various other HBCUs that have been overlooked for so long. This is a huge opportunity for them.
Well, you know, Shannon, one of the things that was said is that what they turn for bad, God will always turn it for good. And you'll see more of people of color being more successful in terms of how they will be productive in our society. And they will come from schools, many of the schools that are not Ivy League schools. So it will hurt the Ivy League schools because they will then see that to pay $40,000 for a semester when I can go to an HBCU school for lesser and still be as productive as I would be if I was at an Ivy League school. Because let's be clear about this. When you go to these Ivy League schools, and most of these schools, you're networking, because these people are going to be people that you're going to be working with in the future on various things, because you're meeting people all along. And I remember you telling me a story of a guy that you met, when you were in school. Well, that wasn't you, it was someone else that told me about a guy that he met in one of the Ivy League schools who helped him to understand about the stock market and how to invest in the stock market, right? Which has been very benefit for him now. And he is passing it on to other people who didn't go to Ivy League schools, who didn't even finish high school or college, that have an aptitude and ability to learn and to grasp these things. Because it's all about your ability to learn, because whether you go to college or not go to college, there's enough information out here that you can succeed and be productive without a college education. You can be a carpenter, you can be a plumber, you can be a big mason, you can be very things, an auto mechanic. There's so many other things that you can be in life. So, when we talk about focusing on Ivy League school, that's good. But then also there are other professions out here that pay well. And because you and I both know, we go to the same barber. He lives a good life cutting hair, right? So there are other professions out here, and we always pushing kids, let's go to college, go to college. But everybody's not college material. So we need to also understand that. But one of the last things I want, as we finish this, one of the last things that she said that was very important, that when we voting, and Mr. Dyson said it too, voting has consequences. So why do you think they want to keep us from voting? Why do you think they don't want us to vote? Because voting has consequences. Why do you think they keep talking about the election was stolen? Because voting has consequences. Again, I say I'm not Democrat nor Republican. I am for who is standing up for our issues. So we see, and you and I talked about that when Trump was there, and how he was having the ability to appoint all of these lower court federal judges, and how he was having the ability, as the president of the United States, to put people on the Supreme Court, right? We talked about that. How many vacancies it was, and how many vacancies were. Now we see the consequences of what he did because of voting. Because of voting. So listen, brothers and sisters, if you don't do anything else, vote down ballot. Make sure that you vote. Go to the polls and vote. Don't be dismayed about what you're seeing or what you're hearing and all these other things. Vote. And take somebody else to the poll with you to vote. Now, Shannon, I want to move down to this other thing, because I know we're not going to be with you everything. But, one of the things that I heard is that precedent was set with this case, with the young lady who did not want to do a web design for a gay couple. And they said that normally when cases like that come up, those cases come up because somebody bring them to the courts. But this case, they took this case up, and she didn't make it a case to the Supreme Court. Now, this is what they said. Now, I mean, I'm just talking about what the commentators and all have said. But this is what they ruled on this case. They wanted this case because they want to deal with this case based on the fact that, just as I stated, that she had the right to not serve certain people of certain sexual persuasion. That sounds very much like, to me, and it predates you and predates me somewhat, is that black folks didn't have to be served by white people. They could refuse to serve you, or they could make you go to the back door to be served. So, it's like we're slipping back in the darkness, because when you keep changing all these rules, so then if I go to a restaurant and I want to eat, and I'm black, I got my suit on, I'm dressed like they say I ought to be dressed, and they say to me, no, you got to get out. Think about the case of the brothers who were sitting in Starbucks, and they were asked to leave Starbucks as they were waiting on somebody, right? So I mean, just let's look at this thing as what's really going on. Because when they make these kind of decisions, then there are other decisions that are made at a lower level, and people feel that they're entitled to do these things. And one last point I want to make: the lady who shot in Florida, who shot the lady at her door because the lady came to her door to address the issue that she was having with her child with this lady, and she shot her through the door, and she wanted to stand up on the stand your ground law. I mean, these things have consequences because people take them to the extreme, So I would hate to have to go to a service station, and I said I want to buy some gas, and they say to me, we don't serve y'all in here. I ain't gonna use the N word, but I'm gonna just say we ain't gonna serve y'all in here, so you got to go someplace else. We're slipping in the darkness. That's how I see this case. I don't know. I'm gonna let you elaborate and give me your opinion. And look like I'm doing better with this. Look like I'm doing better now, because I hear myself, but it's a whole lot better. Go on.
No, I think that there's a great deal of hypocrisy at large with a lot of this. And it just goes really back to what Joy said. When Joy said that elections have consequences. And, when folks sit back and say that, I don't need to vote, it doesn't affect me. It doesn't, what will it do for me? Well, I'm already this, that, and the, I'm already suffering. Well, I'll tell you what, when you don't participate in what is your constitutional responsibility, and for African Americans, what tantamounts to be a bloodstained ballot, when you don't participate in the process, what you begin to see is even the rights that you think you have right now
You
begin
froze, Shannon.
to be eroded.
Yeah, you froze.
It's like we froze there.
Yeah.
Am I back? Look like I
Yeah,
froze
you
for a
back
second.
now. You back.
But yeah, that you put it in the hands of those who don't. When you don't vote, you put it in the hands of those who don't see it squarely with you. And for African Americans, here it is on the variant issues that the Supreme Court has touched. It becomes an issue of the chicken, and the egg, and the hog. Um, there are some who can just, like a chicken, lay eggs and someone can take their eggs from them and it's okay because they can produce more eggs. But for us in this country, because of the color of our skin, bigger than our socioeconomic, bigger than our sexual orientation, when people see us, regardless of who we are, whether you are gay or straight, whether you are male or female, whether you are rich or poor, they see no difference. Those who embrace a theory of white supremacy see no difference between a Barack Obama and a Barack Jackson on the west side of Chicago. They don't see a difference. They place everybody in the same boat. And for us as a people, in our sojourn for equality, and our sojourn to get to the center of the table from the margins, for us not to vote really sacrifices not just the eggs that we produce, some of the rights that but it really becomes an attack on the totality of who we are as a people. The hog doesn't have an egg to lay. He gives his whole life. She gives her entire life so that folks can have bacon and ham hocks and ham and ribs. She gives her whole self. And in this country, we have had to give our whole self. And when we don't participate in protecting the voice by grabbing the bloodstained ballot and voting, then we ultimately pay a huge price. And so we see the hypocrisy and we see the evil coming forward. And it's because many of us sat back and allowed this to happen. And we'll continue to do it. And it will get worse. Not better.
Shannon,
not for us.
Let me ditto you with that commentary there, but I do want to add something. I really want to add something because if a people that don't know their history, they're bound to repeat it. We have had black elected officials after the Civil War, even in the state of Mississippi, who appointed 2 black individuals to be U.S. senators in the state of Mississippi. However, they giveth and they taketh away. They giveth us the right to vote. We don't use the right to vote. The Constitution gives us the right to vote. But then they come up with rules and ways to keep us from voting. But we must march on, and we must continue to tell our young people, listen, it's not about bling, blang, and all the things that you think, the material things that you think. It's your kids and your grandkids' future. That's what you must fight for. And the only weapon that you have to help fight is your vote. Your vote is your voice. Without your vote, you have no voice. Whether you vote Democrat or Republican, that's your voice. But it's not about it. And I'm sick and tired of this country with this two-party system, because this two-party system has caused people to go to the left or to the right, not down the center of the road. The center of the road is the people, the will of the people. We supposed to be, this picture supposed to be a country of the people, by the people, for the people. But the people, the last thing thought about. As I get ready to close, and on this last point, and I'm not pushing Joe Biden. I'm not pushing Joe Biden. I'm not pushing any candidate. I'm talking about what I just said. I'm for those who are fighting for us. Mr. Biden tried to do what so many people who have college student loans, some who finished college, some who did not finish college, but that debt is still due. And he tried to forgive that debt. But there were those who said, no, we don't want to do that. We don't want to help the least, the less, the lost, and the left out. We don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. So we're not going to allow it to happen for forgiveness. We're going to take it to the Supreme Court because we have the people that is going to help us to agree with us and say he can't do it.
And yet they'll forgive the debt of corporations.
Yeah.
Too big to fail.
Bail them out. Chrysler, bail them out. So-and-so, bail them out. But you can't help the least, the less, the lost, and the left out. The hypocrisy of it. The hypocrisy of it. When I say vote, we must vote people who are trying to help the people who are suffering. The least, the less, the lost, and the left out. Well, I thank you so much, Shannon. I'm glad I got my earpiece together so I could actually not hear myself talking and trying to say the same thing I just said over again and miss saying it. But I'm enjoying my vacation, and of course I see that we're out here on the river, rolling on the river, as Tina and Ike Turner would say, rolling, rolling, rolling on the river. But listen, brothers and sisters, in all sincerity, election is coming up. Make sure you register to vote and vote. And check to see if you're still a registered voter. They may have taken you off the roll. And it doesn't mean that you vote just for the president, but you vote for senators, you vote for congressmen, you vote for mayors, you vote for city council people, you vote for those who are over the PSC who regulate your electric bills and your water bills and these bills that these high rates are going up. You make sure you're voting for people who are looking out for your interests, not people just of color, not people just of party, but people who are voting for your interests.
That's right.
But do vote. And on that note, I'm going to say it like this. I'm going to let Big Papa, who's sitting over there like Dapper Dan, because look like he done got him a new shirt, got a new son, so he got a new shirt and a new attitude. I'm going to let you take us on out of here, Big Papa.
Hey, Bishop, I agree with you 100%. I'm going to let you get back there so you can roll on the river. And I think that we let it be known that you don't always have to agree with us, but we're going to give it to you as we see it, straight, no chaser. We're going to give you straight talk. And
it ain't been nothing but what? Straight talk. Oh, and I got to say this, Shannon. Like us, subscribe to us, make comments, and share. We'll see you next week right here on Straight Talk.
Want to be a guest on Straight Talk? Email Greg Fann at FANN922 at Comcast.net or call 404-308-0795. Join us again for another episode of Straight Talk with Shanan Jones and Greg Fann, the Preacher Man.